Life has a strange way of teaching us the same lesson again and again. The more we try to control everything, the results, the timing, the way people respond to us, the more exhausted we become. We plan every detail of our lives, believing that if we just push harder, hold tighter, and refuse to let go, things will finally fall into place. But instead of peace, we find pressure. Instead of clarity, we find frustration. What if the real problem is not that you are doing too little, but that you are trying to control too much? The Stoic philosophers understood a powerful truth that many people still struggle to accept today. Suffering begins the moment we demand that life unfold exactly the way we want. Freedom begins when we focus on what is truly ours to shape: our actions, our mindset, and the way we respond to whatever life brings. The moment you stop forcing every outcome
The winds
and
of
start
fate stir
trusting the
once
process, something
I
surprising
rise to
happens.
claim what is mine.
Your mind becomes
The ruins shall
calmer.
bear witness.
Your actions become clearer, and life begins to move with a different kind of flow. One of the greatest sources of stress in modern life comes from our attachment to outcomes. We convince ourselves that peace will arrive only when a specific result finally happens. We wait for the job offer, the promotion, the relationship to work out, the project to succeed, the recognition to come. In our minds, we build a picture of how life must unfold.
Behold the eternal
And
wisdom
slowly
of the
our happiness
ancients.
becomes chained to that image. The problem is that the more tightly we hold on to a specific outcome, the more anxious we become. Every delay feels like failure. Every obstacle feels like a threat. Instead of enjoying the process of living and growing, we turn every effort into a test of whether life is cooperating with our expectations. This is exactly where the Stoic philosophers believed most human suffering begins. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the expectations they attach to them. When reality does not match the script in our minds, frustration appears almost instantly. We start believing something is wrong, either with the world or with ourselves. Yet the Stoics argued that the deeper issue is not the event, but our attachment to how the event should turn out. Think about how often people postpone their sense of fulfillment until a future result appears. Someone might say, "I will finally feel confident when I get that promotion." Another person believes they will feel worthy once a relationship proves successful. Someone else ties their sense of value to reaching a certain level of money or recognition. In each case, the mind quietly whispers the same message: happiness will come later. Once this outcome happens, the danger of this thinking is subtle but powerful. When your well-being depends on something you cannot fully control, you give your inner stability away to circumstances. The truth is that outcomes are shaped by countless forces beyond your influence. Other people make decisions. Unexpected obstacles appear. Timing shifts. Opportunities arise or disappear. You can influence the direction of your life, but you cannot command the final result. The Stoics understood this clearly, which is why they place such strong emphasis on the difference between what is within our control and what is not. What truly belongs to you are your actions, your discipline, your effort, and the attitude you bring to the moment. Everything
sun
else
sets
exists
on this
in
ancient
a wider
world.
field of
Its
uncertainty.
pillars stand eternal,
When you anchor
whispering
your
secrets
peace
of the
in
ages.
what you can control rather than what you cannot, something remarkable begins to happen. Effort becomes lighter. Fear loses much of its power. You no longer move through life with the constant pressure of needing everything to work out perfectly. Instead, you focus on doing the next right thing with clarity and integrity. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the role of a human being is not to control the entire play of life, but to perform their role well. When you shift your attention from results to actions, you reclaim a sense of freedom that many people spend years searching for. Imagine an artist standing in front of a blank canvas. If the artist becomes obsessed with how the final painting must look, how critics might judge it, or whether it will be considered successful, tension quickly replaces creativity. Every brushstroke becomes heavy with pressure. The mind becomes rigid, cautious, and afraid of mistakes. But when the artist lets go of the need to control the final outcome and simply focuses on the act of painting, a different state emerges. Attention becomes fully absorbed in the present moment. The hands move naturally. Ideas flow more freely. Ironically, this is often when the best work appears. Not when the artist forces perfection, but when they immerse themselves in the process. The same principle quietly governs many areas of life. Relationships offer another clear example. People often feel the strongest anxiety when they become overly attached to how a relationship must develop.
Behold the eternal
They
wisdom
worry
carved in
constantly about
stone.
whether the other person will
In
stay,
these mountains the soul finds
whether
its
the
true
connection
path.
will last,
Let the light
whether
of knowledge
everything
guide
will
you.
unfold according to their hopes. This kind of attachment creates subtle pressure that can be felt by both people. Conversations become tense, expectations grow heavier, and fear begins to replace genuine connection. Yet when someone enters a relationship with a calmer mindset, focusing on honesty, respect, and presence rather than controlling the future, the dynamic changes completely. There is more space to breathe. Authenticity replaces performance. The relationship is no longer forced into a rigid path, and because of that, it often grows in a healthier way. Detaching from outcomes does not mean becoming passive or careless. The Stoics never encouraged indifference toward effort. In fact, they believed deeply in discipline and purposeful action. The difference is that effort should come from commitment to the process rather than desperation for the result. When you work on something meaningful, give it your full attention and energy. Prepare carefully, learn continuously, and act with integrity. But once the action is taken, release the demand that the universe must respond in a particular way. This shift transforms the emotional experience of effort. Instead of constantly asking, "Will this succeed?" you begin asking, "Did I give this moment my best effort and my best character?" A simple practice can help reinforce this mindset. At the beginning of each day, remind yourself that results belong partly to the world, but actions belong fully to you. Your responsibility is to act wisely, speak honestly, and approach challenges with resilience. When you place your focus there, you create a stable center that external events cannot easily shake. Success becomes something you participate in rather than something you desperately chase. And if circumstances unfold differently than expected, you still remain grounded because your sense of worth was never dependent on the final outcome. True freedom appears the moment you realize that peace does not come from controlling results, but from mastering the way you show up for the process. Every challenge in life is experienced twice. Once in reality and once in the mind. Often the second experience is far more painful than the first. A mistake at work, a difficult conversation, an unexpected setback. These events are part of every human life. Yet, what determines whether they break you or strengthen you is not the event itself, but the way your mind interprets it. The
In
Stoic
ancient halls
philosophers
where wisdom
understood
sleeps,
that the human mind
a
can
voice
either
from
become a
stone
powerful
begins to
ally
speak.
or a relentless
Awaken,
enemy.
bearer
If you
of
do not
eternal
learn
light.
to guide your thoughts will begin to guide you, and not always in a helpful direction. This is why mastering the mind was considered one of the most important disciplines in Stoic philosophy. They believe that external circumstances rarely control a person's life as much as their own interpretations do. Think about how quickly the mind can create stories. A small mistake happens, and suddenly the inner voice begins whispering harsh conclusions. You start thinking that you are not capable enough, not intelligent enough, not ready for the responsibility in front of you. A single moment becomes evidence for a much larger narrative about who you are. In reality, the situation may simply be a normal part of learning, but the mind magnifies it into something much heavier. This is how untrained thinking quietly turns ordinary challenges into emotional suffering. Epictetus explained that what disturbs people is not the situation itself, but the judgment they form about it. When the mind labels an event as humiliation, failure, or proof of weakness, the body immediately reacts with tension, fear, and doubt.
Behold the eternal wisdom of the ancients.
As information, as a lesson, or as temporary difficulty, the emotional experience becomes completely different. Modern psychology has rediscovered a truth that Stoic thinkers already understood centuries ago. Human beings have the ability to step back from their thoughts and examine them rather than automatically believing them.
Secrets of the ages.
William James once wrote that the greatest weapon against stress is the ability to choose one thought over another. This idea aligns perfectly with Stoic practice. The mind produces countless impressions every day. Some hopeful, some fearful, some accurate, some distorted. Wisdom comes from learning which thoughts deserve your attention and which should simply pass by without control over your behavior. When a negative thought appears, it often demands immediate belief. It insists that the situation is hopeless, that failure is inevitable, that the future will repeat the pain of the past. But a trained mind pauses before accepting these claims. Instead of reacting automatically, it asks a quieter question. Is this thought actually true? Or is it simply a moment of fear speaking too loudly? Consider the difference between two people facing the same pressure at work. Both receive criticism from a supervisor after making several mistakes. The first person allows the mind to spiral into self-judgment. They begin to believe that the criticism confirms their worst fears about themselves. Anxiety grows stronger with each passing hour. Every new task feels like another opportunity to fail. Gradually, their performance becomes worse. Not because they lack ability, but because their own thinking has turned against them. The second person experiences the same criticism, but approaches it differently. Instead of attaching it to their identity, they view it as feedback. They ask themselves what can be learned from the situation and how their approach can improve. The pressure becomes a form of training rather than a threat to their sense of worth. Over time, this mindset strengthens resilience and confidence because each challenge becomes part of growth rather than proof of inadequacy. The Stoics often compared the mind to a field that must be carefully cultivated. If you leave a field unattended, weeds will eventually take over. In the same way, if the mind is left unexamined, it tends to fill with fear, resentment, and unnecessary worry. Thoughts about past mistakes begin to replay again and again. Imagined disasters about the future appear long before any real danger exists. Slowly, attention drifts away from the present moment where life is actually happening. This is why Stoic practice emphasized awareness of inner dialogue. By noticing the patterns of your thinking, you begin to recognize how many worries are created by imagination rather than reality. Seneca wrote that people suffer more often in imagination than in reality. This simple observation explains why so much anxiety feels overwhelming even when the present moment is manageable. Training the mind does not mean suppressing emotion or pretending that difficulties do not exist. Instead, it means learning to respond consciously rather than react automatically. When frustration arises, you observe it without letting it dictate your behavior. When fear appears, you examine it with curiosity rather than surrendering to it. Over time, this habit creates an inner distance between the observer and the thought. You begin to realize that a thought is not a command. It is only a mental event that you can evaluate before choosing how to respond. This awareness brings a quiet sense of authority back into your life because your reactions are no longer controlled by the loudest voice in your head. A helpful question can guide you whenever your mind begins to race with worry. Ask yourself, what is actually within my control in this moment? Usually, the answer is simpler than the mind expects. You can control the effort you give to the next task, the calmness of your breathing, the honesty of your actions, and the patience you bring to the situation. By returning attention to these small but meaningful choices, you anchor your mind back in the present, where your real power exists. Over time, this discipline transforms the way challenges are experienced. Instead of feeling like storms that sweep you away, they become opportunities to practice clarity, steadiness, and wisdom. Mastering the mind is not about eliminating difficulty. It is about developing the strength to meet difficulty with composure and thoughtful action. Patience is one of the most difficult virtues to practice, especially in a world that constantly promises fast results. Everywhere you look, there are messages telling you that success should happen quickly, that progress should be visible immediately, and that if something takes too long, it must mean you are doing something wrong. This pressure quietly pushes many people into frustration. They work hard. They put in effort. They try to improve themselves. Yet the results they expect do not appear as quickly as they hoped. When this happens, the mind begins to doubt the path. It starts asking whether the effort is pointless, whether the goal is unrealistic, or whether everyone else is somehow moving ahead faster. What often goes unnoticed is that life rarely follows the schedule we imagine. Many of the most meaningful transformations develop slowly, beneath the surface, long before visible results appear. The Stoic philosophers understood that growth follows a natural rhythm that cannot be rushed. Epictetus reminded his students that no great thing is created suddenly. Wisdom, strength of character, meaningful relationships, and lasting achievements all require time to mature. Just as a tree cannot grow overnight by pulling its branches upward, human development cannot be forced by impatience. When people try to accelerate every step of the process, they often damage the very progress they are trying to achieve. The pressure to see immediate results leads to discouragement, and discouragement leads many people to abandon their efforts before the deeper transformation has had time to emerge. Imagine someone learning a new skill, perhaps mastering a language, developing a craft, or building a meaningful career. In the early stages, progress can feel slow and uncertain. The improvements are small and sometimes invisible to others. If that person constantly measures their success by how quickly results appear, the journey becomes emotionally exhausting. Every day that does not produce dramatic change feels like failure. But when someone accepts that mastery grows gradually, their attention shifts from speed to consistency. Instead of asking why success has not arrived yet, they focus on practicing a little better each day. Over months and years, these small efforts accumulate into real transformation. The difference between those who eventually succeed and those who quit often lies in their relationship with time. Modern culture has made patience even more difficult by surrounding us with examples of instant gratification. Technology allows us to receive information immediately, entertainment instantly, and communication within seconds. This environment subtly trains the mind to expect rapid responses from every area of life. Yet, personal growth does not follow the same rules as digital convenience. Building confidence, developing wisdom, and shaping a meaningful path require repeated effort over long periods of time. When people apply the logic of instant gratification to these deeper processes, they create unnecessary pressure that leads to disappointment. The Stoics encouraged a different perspective on time. Instead of viewing delay as evidence that something is wrong, they saw time as an essential partner in development. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the idea that everything unfolds according to a broader order within nature. Seasons change gradually. Living things grow step by step. And even the strongest mountains were formed over countless years. When human beings accept that they are part of this larger rhythm, they begin to release the tension created by unrealistic expectations. Effort becomes calmer because it is no longer driven by the fear that time is running out. Trusting the right timing also requires a deeper kind of faith in your own journey. Sometimes the opportunities you desire do not appear immediately because you are still developing the qualities needed to handle them well. A leadership position may arrive only after your patience and judgment have matured. A meaningful relationship may appear when you have learned enough about yourself to participate in it honestly. What feels like delay may actually be preparation taking place beneath the surface. When you recognize this possibility, waiting no longer feels like wasted time. It becomes part of the path itself. Think of a sculptor shaping a block of stone. The finished statue may appear elegant and effortless, but the process behind it involves hundreds of careful strikes, each one removing only a small fragment. If the sculptor demanded instant perfection, the work would collapse under impatience. Instead, they trust that each small adjustment contributes to the final form. Life often follows the same principle. Each experience, each effort, each lesson gradually shapes the person you are becoming. Even when progress feels slow, the process is still unfolding. Trusting the timing of life does not mean becoming passive or waiting for success to appear without effort. The Stoics never suggested that people should abandon their responsibilities. Instead, they encouraged consistent action combined with acceptance of the pace at which results develop. You continue learning, practicing, improving, and contributing with dedication. At the same time, you release the demand that the world must deliver rewards immediately. This balance between effort and patience creates a powerful sense of stability. Your motivation comes from commitment to growth rather than from the anxiety of racing against time. Over time, this perspective changes the emotional experience of pursuing your goals. Instead of constantly worrying about when success will finally arrive, you become more present with the work itself. Each step feels meaningful because it contributes to a larger process. Doubt loses much of its power because you understand that progress is rarely visible at every moment. By trusting the natural rhythm of development, you allow your path to unfold with greater clarity and resilience. What once felt like delay becomes part of the quiet preparation that leads to lasting achievement. Many people believe that success comes from pushing harder than everyone else, chasing every opportunity, and never slowing down. From the outside, this kind of behavior can look like ambition, but beneath the surface, it is often driven by something much heavier: desperation. When actions are fueled by fear of missing out, fear of failure, or fear of not being enough, the mind becomes restless and scattered. Decisions are rushed. Attention jumps from one direction to another, and the sense of purpose becomes blurred. Instead of moving with clarity, a person begins reacting to pressure. The Stoic philosophers warned that action without inner stability often leads to chaos rather than progress. True effectiveness does not come from frantic effort. It comes from purposeful action, guided by clear values and calm awareness. Epictetus once advised that before acting, a person should first decide who they want to become. This simple idea carries profound meaning. When your identity is unclear, your actions easily become reactions to circumstances. You chase approval when people praise you. You panic when opportunities seem to disappear. And you rush toward anything that promises quick success. But when you know the kind of person you are striving to be, your actions begin to align naturally with that direction. Instead of asking what will bring immediate results, you start asking what kind of action reflects the character you want to cultivate. The difference between these two questions may seem subtle, yet it transforms the way decisions are made. One is driven by anxiety about outcomes. The other is guided by commitment to purpose. Desperation creates a constant sense of urgency that clouds judgment. When people feel that they must achieve something immediately, they often overlook the deeper question of whether their actions actually move them toward the life they want. Imagine someone searching for a job while feeling intense pressure to succeed as quickly as possible. In a desperate state, they begin sending applications everywhere without reflection. They pursue positions that do not match their skills, their interests, or their values. Every rejection, then, feels like personal defeat because their identity has become tied to a result they cannot control. Now, imagine another person in the same situation who approaches the process with patience and intention. They take time to understand their strengths, refine their preparation, and apply where their abilities truly fit. They still work hard, but their effort is directed rather than scattered. Over time, this difference in approach often leads to more meaningful opportunities because their actions reflect clarity rather than panic. This principle also appears clearly in human relationships. When someone approaches connection from a place of desperation, their behavior subtly reveals insecurity. They seek constant reassurance. They overanalyze every message or response, and they become overly eager to secure the relationship. Although these actions are usually driven by the desire to feel loved or valued, they often create pressure that pushes people away. Genuine connection grows best in an atmosphere of mutual respect and emotional stability. When someone enters a relationship with confidence in their own worth, they interact more naturally. They listen. They share honestly. And they allow the connection to develop without forcing it into a rigid timeline. This calm presence often creates stronger and more authentic bonds because it is not built on fear of loss. Purposeful action begins with understanding your deeper motivations. Before pursuing any goal, it is useful to pause and ask why the goal matters. Is the pursuit driven by curiosity, growth, and a desire to contribute something meaningful? Or is it driven by the fear of falling behind others? These two motivations lead to very different emotional experiences. When action grows from fear, it always carries tension. When it grows from purpose, it carries energy that feels stable and sustainable. Aristotle spoke about the idea of living in accordance with virtue, suggesting that true fulfillment comes from aligning actions with the highest qualities of character. The Stoics shared a similar belief. They saw wisdom, courage, discipline, and justice as guiding principles for meaningful action. When your decisions are guided by these qualities rather than by panic about outcomes, your path becomes clearer even when circumstances remain uncertain. Another important aspect of purposeful action is patience. Desperation rushes forward without reflection because it fears that time is running out. Purpose, however, understands that thoughtful movement often leads to stronger results. A skilled chess player does not make moves simply to relieve the tension of waiting. They observe the board, consider possibilities, and act with intention. Life often rewards the same approach. When you allow yourself a moment to step back from pressure, you gain the ability to see the broader pattern of your situation. This clarity leads to decisions that support long-term growth rather than short-term relief from anxiety. When your actions come from purpose rather than desperation, a subtle shift takes place in your energy. You no longer feel like you are chasing something that might disappear at any moment. Instead, you feel grounded in the direction you have chosen. Even when obstacles appear, they do not shake your sense of identity because your worth is not tied to immediate success. Each step becomes part of a larger journey guided by intention. Seneca observed that a calm mind creates stronger outcomes than a mind driven by panic. When your actions are aligned with your values and guided by patience, you begin to move through life with a quiet confidence. Progress may not always be instant, but it becomes steady and meaningful because it grows from clarity rather than fear. One of the most exhausting habits the human mind develops is the constant attempt to control everything. People try to control how others see them, how events unfold, how quickly success arrives, and even how the future should look. At first, this desire feels reasonable. It seems natural to want certainty, stability, and predictable outcomes. Yet the more tightly a person tries to control life, the more tension they create inside themselves. Reality rarely obeys our plans perfectly. People act according to their own thoughts and emotions. Opportunities appear and disappear without warning, and circumstances shift in ways that no amount of planning can fully predict. When someone builds their sense of security on controlling these unpredictable forces, frustration becomes almost inevitable. The Stoic philosophers recognized this pattern long ago and offered a powerful solution. Real strength does not come from controlling everything around you. It comes from learning to release the need for control over what was never yours to command. Epictetus spoke clearly about this idea when he explained that freedom is gained by focusing only on what belongs to us and letting go of what does not. According to Stoic teaching, there are two broad categories in life. The first includes things within our influence, such as our thoughts, our actions, our decisions, and the effort we choose to give in each moment. The second includes everything else: other people's opinions, the past, the exact timing of events, and the countless external factors that shape outcomes. When people confuse these two categories, they begin investing enormous emotional energy into battles they cannot win. They try to change how someone else feels about them. They replay past mistakes, hoping to undo them. Or they attempt to force the future into a specific shape. These efforts drain the mind while offering very little real power in return. Consider how often people become trapped in frustration while trying to change another person. A friend may behave in a way that feels disappointing. A partner may fail to meet certain expectations. Or a colleague may refuse to cooperate as hoped. The natural reaction is to push harder, to argue, persuade, or criticize in an effort to make the other person behave differently. Yet no matter how strong the effort becomes, another human being still retains their own will. Their choices are influenced by their experiences, beliefs, fears, and desires, many of which remain invisible to you. Trying to control another person's behavior often creates more resistance rather than understanding. The Stoics believed that the wiser path is to focus on what truly belongs to you in that situation. You can communicate honestly, set boundaries when necessary, and decide what kind of relationship you are willing to maintain. These actions reflect your character and your values. Beyond that point, the other person's response is part of their own journey. The same lesson appears when people pursue success. Many individuals believe that if they plan carefully enough and work tirelessly enough, they can eliminate uncertainty from the path ahead. They attempt to predict every detail, prepare for every possible obstacle, and manage every outcome before it even happens. While preparation is valuable, the illusion of total control often leads to constant anxiety. Each unexpected twist feels like a threat to the entire plan. Seneca wrote that fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. His words describe the tension created when someone fights endlessly against the natural unpredictability of life. When a person accepts that uncertainty is part of every journey, their relationship with effort changes. They still prepare, still work with discipline, but they no longer treat every unexpected outcome as a personal failure. Instead, they adapt, adjust their direction, and continue moving forward. Imagine preparing for an important interview. You research the company, practice your answers, and review your experience carefully. These actions are fully within your control, and they strengthen your confidence. Yet, once the interview begins, there are many elements you cannot command. The interviewer may ask unexpected questions. Their mood may influence the conversation, and other candidates may bring different strengths to the table. If your mind is consumed by the need to control the final decision, anxiety quickly takes over. You may start overthinking every response, worrying about how each word is perceived, and second-guessing your preparation. Ironically, this need for control often weakens performance. But when you accept that the result is not entirely yours to decide, something shifts inside you. Your attention returns to the present moment. You listen more carefully, respond more naturally, and allow your preparation to guide you without the burden of forced perfection. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing where responsibility truly ends. The Stoics believed that peace emerges when effort is focused precisely where it matters. Your task is to act with integrity, patience, and courage in whatever situation appears before you. Beyond that point, life unfolds through a larger web of causes and events that no individual can fully manage. When you release the illusion that everything must unfold according to your expectations, your mind becomes lighter. Energy that was once wasted on worry becomes available for thoughtful action. Challenges still appear, but they no longer feel like personal attacks against your plans. Over time, this perspective creates a deeper form of confidence. You begin to trust your ability to respond to whatever happens, rather than demanding that nothing unexpected ever occur. Instead of gripping the future with fear, you engage with the present moment more fully. Each decision becomes an opportunity to express your character rather than a desperate attempt to control the outcome. This is the quiet power the Stoics spoke about. When you let go of the need to control life itself, you regain control over the only thing that truly belongs to you. The way you think, the way you act, and the way you meet the unfolding of each moment. Many people move through life with a quiet belief that something important is missing. They feel as if they are always one step behind where they should be. Not enough money, not enough success, not enough recognition, not enough time. This way of thinking slowly creates what can be called a scarcity mindset. When the mind is focused on what is lacking, every situation begins to look like proof that life is unfair or incomplete. Opportunities appear smaller, setbacks feel heavier, and comparison with others becomes constant. Even when progress happens, it rarely feels satisfying because attention quickly shifts toward the next thing that seems absent. The Stoic philosophers offered a very different perspective. They believed that true wealth has little to do with possessions or achievements, Real abundance begins in the mind of a person who understands how to appreciate what already exists while continuing to grow. Epictetus expressed this idea clearly when he said that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. At first, this statement may sound unusual in a world that constantly encourages people to want more. Yet the deeper meaning becomes powerful when you reflect on it. A person who endlessly multiplies their desires will never feel rich, no matter how much they accumulate. Every new achievement simply creates the next expectation. But a person who learns to value what is already present develops a sense of internal stability that cannot easily be shaken by circumstance. This does not mean abandoning ambition or refusing to improve your life. The Stoics did not teach passivity or resignation. Instead, they encouraged a balance between appreciation and aspiration. Growth becomes healthier when it emerges from gratitude rather than from the fear of not having enough. Consider how two individuals might enter the same environment with completely different mental attitudes. One person walks into a room already comparing themselves to everyone around them. They notice who appears more successful, more confident, or more accomplished. Their attention immediately turns toward what they believe they lack. Because their focus is fixed on deficiency, they carry subtle tension in the way they speak and behave. They may hesitate to engage openly, fearing that they will not measure up. Opportunities for connection or collaboration can easily pass by because the mind is busy protecting itself from imagined judgment. Now imagine another person entering the same room with a sense of internal abundance. They believe they already possess something valuable to contribute. Whether it is knowledge, curiosity, kindness, or experience. Instead of comparing themselves to others, they approach conversations with genuine interest. Their energy feels lighter because it is not burdened by constant self-evaluation. This attitude often attracts positive interactions naturally, not because the person is superior, but because their mindset allows them to engage freely. Modern psychology has also shown that the mind tends to search for evidence that supports its existing beliefs. If you believe that the world is filled with scarcity, your attention will constantly scan for signs that opportunities are limited and success belongs only to a few. But if you believe that life contains countless possibilities for growth and connection, your mind begins to notice chances that previously went unseen. The Stoics recognized this pattern in a philosophical way long before scientific research described it. They taught that perception shapes experience. When your thoughts focus only on lack, your world appears narrow and competitive. When your thoughts recognize the abundance of learning, creativity, and human potential around you, your world becomes wider and more hopeful. Gratitude is one of the most effective ways to cultivate this sense of abundance. By deliberately acknowledging the good that already exists in your life, you gradually retrain your attention. Simple things that once seemed ordinary begin to feel meaningful again. The presence of supportive people, the ability to learn and improve, the opportunity to work towards something worthwhile. These elements form a foundation that many people overlook while chasing distant goals. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to appreciate the simple realities of existence, the chance to think, to act with virtue, and to participate in the shared experience of being human. This perspective grounded him in the present moment rather than trapping his mind in endless longing. An abundance mindset also changes the way you respond to challenges. When someone believes there is never enough opportunity, every obstacle feels like confirmation that the path is closing. Fear quickly replaces curiosity. But when someone believes that growth can emerge from many directions, setbacks become part of exploration rather than proof of failure. A musician who trusts in abundance will see each rejection as feedback and continue refining their craft. A person who trusts in abundance within relationships will approach connection with openness rather than suspicion. In both cases, the external circumstances may remain uncertain, but the internal attitude allows progress to continue. Cultivating abundance does not require pretending that life is perfect. Difficult moments still exist, and effort is still necessary. The difference lies in the foundation from which you act. When you operate from scarcity, you feel as if you are constantly struggling to secure something before it disappears. When you operate from abundance, you recognize that life offers endless opportunities to learn, create, and connect. Your actions become guided by curiosity and confidence instead of fear. Over time, this shift transforms the emotional tone of everyday life. Instead of racing through experiences, searching for the next missing piece, you begin to see that much of what you need for fulfillment already surrounds you. From that place of appreciation, your efforts gain new strength because they are fueled by possibility rather than by the anxiety of never having enough. There is an important difference between constant effort and meaningful action. Many people are taught that success requires endless pushing, endless grinding, and relentless control over every step of the journey. While effort is certainly necessary, the Stoic philosophers understood that there is a moment when effort must be followed by trust. Without that balance, action easily turns into strain. When a person becomes obsessed with forcing results, they often create resistance where patience would have allowed progress to unfold naturally. This is why wisdom involves not only knowing how to act, but also knowing when to release the outcome and allow life to complete the process. Seneca once wrote that effort combined with patience achieves more than force combined with anxiety. These words highlight a principle that appears again and again in the rhythms of life. Growth rarely happens instantly. Whether you are building a career, strengthening a relationship, learning a skill, or improving your character, each process requires time and space to develop. Yet the human mind often becomes restless when results do not appear quickly. Doubt begins to whisper that something must be wrong. The temptation arises to push harder, to change direction too quickly, or to interfere with the natural pace of progress. Ironically, this impatience often disrupts the very growth that was beginning to take shape. A simple image helps illustrate this idea. Imagine a farmer planting seeds in the soil. The farmer prepares the ground carefully, places each seed with intention, waters the soil, and ensures that sunlight reaches the field. These actions represent everything that is within the farmer's control. Yet once the seeds are planted, the farmer cannot force them to grow faster. Pulling on the sprouts will not accelerate their development. Digging them up every day to check their progress would only damage them. The farmer must trust that the invisible processes beneath the soil are already unfolding. Life follows a similar pattern. Your role is to prepare, to act with care and discipline, and to nurture the conditions that support growth. Beyond that point, progress emerges through time and circumstances that cannot be rushed. This principle appears in relationships as well. When people become overly anxious about how a relationship must develop, they sometimes try to control every interaction. They seek constant reassurance. They analyze every word, and they push the connection forward before it has room to breathe. Although the intention may come from a desire for closeness, the pressure created by this urgency can suffocate the natural rhythm of trust and understanding. But when someone shows interest while still allowing space, a healthier dynamic begins to form. Conversations flow more naturally. Both people feel respected, and the connection grows at a pace that feels genuine rather than forced. The same balance between action and release quietly supports many forms of human connection. Professional life offers another example of this principle. A person might spend years developing their abilities, studying, practicing, and improving their craft. These efforts represent the aligned action that the Stoics encouraged. Yet the moment results become the sole focus. Tension begins to creep into every decision. The mind constantly asks whether recognition will arrive soon enough, whether success will appear exactly as imagined. This pressure can turn meaningful work into a source of anxiety. When someone learns to give their full dedication to the quality of their work while releasing the need to control the outcome, something shifts internally. The work itself becomes the focus again. Creativity returns, clarity improves, and opportunities often appear in unexpected ways because the person is no longer trapped by fear of immediate results. Marcus Aurelius expressed this mindset with a simple reminder to himself: do what you must and accept what happens. This statement captures the essence of balanced action. The first part emphasizes responsibility. You must prepare yourself, act with integrity, and pursue your goals with discipline. The second part emphasizes acceptance. Once the action is complete, the result belongs to a wider network of causes beyond your control. By recognizing this boundary, the mind releases the heavy burden of trying to command the future. Letting go after action also strengthens resilience. When someone believes that every outcome must unfold exactly as planned, any unexpected result feels like defeat. But when someone understands that outcomes are only partly within their influence, they become more adaptable. A door closing no longer represents the end of possibility. It becomes information that guides the next step. Instead of feeling trapped by disappointment, the person remains free to adjust their path with creativity and courage. This ability to adapt is one of the quiet strengths that Stoic philosophy sought to cultivate. Over time, this way of living creates a deeper relationship with the present moment. Instead of constantly projecting your attention into the future, worrying about when success will arrive, you begin to focus on the quality of what you are doing now. Each action becomes meaningful because it reflects your values and your character. When the future eventually unfolds, it will be shaped by the countless choices you made in those present moments. The Stoics believed that peace comes from aligning effort with wisdom rather than from demanding specific results from life. When you learn to act with clarity and then release the outcome, you move through life with a sense of calm, strength. Progress continues, growth continues, and your mind remains steady because you trust both your actions and the unfolding path ahead.